Thank you for tuning in. I'm Alfred Ip of Hugo and Ip. Today we have Florence Chen. Hello, Florence.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for taking this with me. And today we talk about diversity.
We will indeed, and it's fantastic to be here. It's an honour. And when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's really mixed. Some people are like, oh yeah, I know about that. But then some are like, what is it? It's still very up and down, and the audience is still very wide.
Can I just ask, like a 6 years old, what exactly is it, diversity?
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the larger corporates and international companies will have a team or a person that focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion. Sometimes you hear the B word for belonging. Mm-hmm. And then those letters are moved around. So some call it IDE, some DEI, some call it BIDI, all kinds of acronyms. Diversity is when you look at all the ways in which we are different. It can be different in terms of how we are as people, our upbringing, our cultures, our backgrounds, our various different identities. And also it can be the difference in how we think, diversity of thought.
Okay.
When we talk about inclusion, it's how do we bring all that diversity, all those differences together. And equity is what we need to do it, because you have equality where everyone has the same chance, right? Same fighting chance, equal rights. But a lot of people from diverse backgrounds start further back, start further at the bottom. And so it's not fair to all be treated equally. And that's where equitable actions need to be made to make sure that they are lifted and given that gentle push, that additional empowerment and support.
Why is it important for business to have diversity, inclusion, or equality policy?
I think that's a very good question. In this current climate where it's so unstable, the world is experiencing so many differences, volatility. Companies need to thrive and be resilient. And to do that, they need to have a strong workforce. They need to be thinking about how do they build that strong workforce, ensure that the company shows that they care, that they support their people, make them feel valued, and that they have a voice. And to do that, you can be looking at diversity, equity, inclusion. What are the ways in which we are having policies, programs, initiatives to show that they are caring about the different employee populations? And that's why a lot of companies have, like, mentoring programs targeted at women, for example, for those that where there are not enough women in leadership, or disability. Maybe there are internship programs to get more young disabled talent into companies. And looking at things like culture, race, where can we show that true cross-cultural agility and inclusion to make everyone feel like they can fit in and be themselves. As well, of course, LGBT plus inclusion, which is super important, because the conservative estimate is that 1 in 10 people identify as LGBT plus, right? But most of us know that's probably more like 1 in 8. And here in Asia, we've got surveys that show 80, 90, 95% of us are in the closet. That's nearly the entire population. So how do we build diversity and inclusion to show support when they aren't even visible, when they're too scared to even come out of the closet? And that's where companies really need to think of all different kinds of ways to show that they care.
I guess one of the main questions that a lot of business enterprise will think about is, what is the cost of all this policy, and what would be the benefit? Is there any number that you can show to justify this policy in terms of raising the efficiency of a business enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of research. If you just do a quick Google about the benefits of diversity, equity, inclusion for companies, you can see that it increases revenue growth. It increases the support of investors in your company. For example, if your board shows that it's diverse, has a woman on it, has diversity in terms of cultures and race on that board, investors are looking at these things now. You know, is this a company worth investing in? Also, in terms of looking at companies that have strong diversity, equity, inclusion programs and policies, have higher success rates in terms of their business efficiencies, in terms of their business progress in driving performance, but also reduced attrition rates as well. So that's pretty cool.
Okay, there are a lot of benefits for business enterprise to adopt diversity and inclusion policy. But in the past, when you were working for community business, I'm sure that you have come across many businesses that simply say no. Has there been any example or excuses you can share with us on what is the main common reason for a company not to adopt these policies?
I mean, I have noticed that a lot of companies in Asia that focus on diversity, equity, inclusion are international companies.
Yeah.
And when you look at local Asian founded headquarter companies, there are a lot less. And it does surprise me because diversity, equity, inclusion is at the very core of a lot of these businesses, but they just don't call it that. They call it being a family, being teamwork, supporting one another. So they call it different things. Now, in terms of really driving change, I think a lot of the excuses tend to be, well, it's a Western thing. You know, it's nothing to do with us. But they just don't really understand the topic, or maybe it's called something they don't understand. So what helps is translating it into a language that they understand, and then you get that buy-in and you get that support. So actually, there are more and more Asian companies that are supporting diversity, equity, inclusion.
It's interesting enough that you mentioned the difference between the Western and the Asian culture. And it seems to me that Asian are not particularly good at talking about those issues.
Yeah, you know, I think it stems from, some of it can stem from the culture as well. You know, we don't necessarily, here in Asia, we don't necessarily like to boast about achievements too much.
But you're humble.
Bits to a degree, or also more reserved, more quieter, conservative perhaps. And so when you ask a company to set up an LGBT plus network or a women's chapter, they're like, you know, is that okay? Should we be doing that? And there's the hesitation, maybe the mindset of not wanting to rock the boat or doing something different than everyone else. It's always been about about unity, team together, one team, you know, one family. Everyone supports one another in a sense that we're all together the same. And so if you are then saying, let's celebrate disability, let's celebrate LGBT+, you're kind of going against that because then you're like, oh, I have to stand out and, you know, wave that flag, which a lot of people would be a bit hesitant to do.
Yes, understandable. And to me, I think Asian, they're more talking about like a family, but by being a family, actually it means that people within the company have to talk to each other more. They need to have an open discussion about what they need, what they want, and they have no fear that they're, irrespective of gender identity or sexual orientation, would hesitate them in the career progression. I think in particular, a lot of people do not want to talk about, for example, their preference in terms they might be appearing as Chinese, for example, but they don't want to talk about anything private. We Chinese are, of course, very reserved. We don't understand that. But how to make them understand that they would not be treated differently by being themselves? Perhaps it's a very deep topic that we can talk about another day.
Actually, some of the work that you're doing in terms of showing that LGBT plus inclusion is more widely accepted in society. And your firm role models that in some of the initiatives that you run in terms of doing this talk series, but also in terms of the work that you do around same-sex couples in leading the way on how to, make sure that you have a will, make sure that you know what your rights are, and how you can support your loved ones, given certain obstacles that exist here in Hong Kong and around Asia. I think more awareness, more education, and more general, like public support and visible inclusion will help create that safe environment that young men and women can feel like, actually, I can come out and I won't be ostracized by society.
Yeah, I believe that the reason why motivate us into doing all this is our front row seat in witnessing tragedy faced by the LGBT community, in particular when they're not comfortable coming out or talking about the issues that they face when they are not protected by the law. The very common example would be like losing the loved one without proper estate planning in place, just like what you said, wills and all this. But more importantly, I think a lot of people don't understand the value or the difference of marriage. What marriage is really about. I know that you are in one. You're also a mother. I guess one of the questions that I have is how do you see yourself as a mother when you're grooming your children in terms of facing or talking about these diversity issues?
That's a really good question. So I am a mum now. I can't believe it. I have a daughter that's 2 and a son who just turned 5. I'm very conscious of society's gender bias. That was something that hit me straight away. Not even before they were born.
Oh?
When I was pregnant with both of them, I would have all these questions about, okay, is it a boy, is it a girl? I want to know because otherwise I can't buy you anything. I was like, why can't you buy me anything? It's like, oh, because boys like, cars and girls like dolls.
Very interesting.
Boys are blue and girls are pink. So it has been a challenge to fight against all this bias and assumptions that society, family, friends, schools have on children. And so being a parent, I really find it important. I urge anyone listening that is a parent to take that extra bit of time to show that you support your children. Don't, shout at them or tell them off if the boy wants to wear a dress. They're a kid. Let them wear a dress and have a bit of fun. They want to paint their nails. Yeah. It's a bit of fun, If the girl wants to play cars, so be it, Yeah. I think that's really important. And then also there's a lot of books out there, a lot of great children's books to talk about things like same-sex parents, things like, trans. You have the Penguin book that's really beautiful that talks about parenting and the penguin, male or female, taking care of the little baby penguin. And actually a bunch of us, we campaigned against the restriction of what we call rainbow children's books in the public libraries a number of years ago. Okay. Because they decided to hide them all. So you have to go up to the counter and request it. Now you can't just go to the shelves to get it yourself. And I think it's really important to educate yourself, but also your family and friends and loved ones, like the grandparents taking care of them, for example, to let them understand about gender bias, but also about LGBT plus to a degree. I think it's important. And you can start them young. Like I have friends who are gay dads. Yeah. lesbian moms.
Yeah.
And we'll have play dates. And I explain to my son or my daughter, like, this is the dada, this is the baba, you know? And you can do it in subtle ways so that they kind of normalize that this is okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's important.
normalizing, I think, is the word. I think it's what we call the key words. Because a lot of time, people do think that, having two dads or two moms are very, weird. How are children going to thrive in an environment when there's a lack of mother, for example, or lack of father? But there are a lot of study that shows that children are doing fine in same-sex families.
If anything, they do better. They do better, honestly, because they have that worldly understanding. They have more resilience as a kid. They have more understanding of the world, and they can do better and educate other children as well.
Interesting enough, when you talk about gender bias, actually the society is trying to feed children into those pigeon box. Boys should be masculine, like courageous, like cars, like going up, like storming around, and girls should be like soft and fragile and all this. Actually, the diversity of family structure, we call it modern families, helped breaking these kind of pigeonhole. Children growing up in this environment should be more versatile. They are more flexible. They're more adaptable to changes or different ideas. And isn't it what it is all about nowadays in the modern world? Flexibility, diversity, ability to adapt changes that is going very fast nowadays in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was quite ignorant growing up in terms of what was out there, knowledge and understanding. And from a young age, I would say from year 7 in secondary school, I had a crush on this girl. And she presented more like a tomboy.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, and you get like the flush and things like that, and I didn't know what that was about, right?
Yeah.
You're what, 11?
Yeah, of course.
And growing up, I, liked both boys and girls, so I would identify as bisexual. But I always felt, if I were to be a woman, I wouldn't really be able to have kids. I wouldn't be able to really settle down, which is something that I felt like in the future, at some point in my life, I might have to do.
Yeah.
And it really affected me in, I think, my life choices. And when I came to Asia and came to Hong Kong, I got involved with the LGBT plus rights inclusion movement.
Yeah.
I met so many awesome men and women that had children.
Yeah.
And I learned, for example, you can have children by surrogacy, adoption, through IVF, AI, which is artificial insemination, not the other AI. And also I learned that there are drugs that mums can take to lactate. So you can breastfeed babies even if you weren't pregnant and had that baby.
Wow.
And so there's a lesbian friend of mine who adopted a very young baby taking drugs and is able to breastfeed her baby. And I was like, that's so beautiful.
It is.
And I didn't know that growing up. No awareness. And I think, that definitely, I want the future generation, the current younger generation, to know that there are all these choices that they can make and they can assimilate into society, be parents, grow families. And there's all these different ways in which you can do it, and it's brilliant.
I think nowadays families have very different meanings. Compared with the time that when we grew up, it's about a dad and a mom and probably one boys and one girl. They grew up in a good school and be a brilliant kid and be well behaved and excel in academic performance, and they're hoping that they will go to university and then they will have a respectable job and probably be a lawyer as well. I guess nowadays it's very different now. But more and more parents want their children to be happy. More and more parents want their children to grow up in a happy and satisfying or a content environment, rather than having a lot of expectation towards them when they grow up. Mm-hmm. And I think this is changing the younger generation. Of course, a lot of people do think that the younger generation become less resilient.
You know what? I feel that the younger LGBT plus generation are pretty damn resilient and pretty awesome. I sometimes support a local NGO called Gender Empowerment that focuses on transgender inclusion. Mm-hmm. And we did a workshop together I think it was like 2 years ago, where one of the attendees came up to me after the workshop. Yeah. And she identifies as a trans woman. Okay. Young university student in Hong Kong. Oh. And she said that, I wish... She said, I wish I had you for a mum. Yeah, okay. And then I said, okay. Oh my God, do I look that old? And then she said, because I can't come out to my family. Okay. Every morning, I wake up as a boy. Yeah. And I have to look in the mirror and I see a boy. And then I go to university and I have my closet, my makeup in my locker. And I can finally dress up and be who I am. But I have to do that every morning. And the whole day, I am me as a proud trans woman. But at the end of the day, I have to take all that makeup away. I need to change my clothes and go back as a boy again. And I can never, ever come out to my family. It really hit me because what a way to live. And what an environment to be brought up in that you feel so unsafe. And to feel like you can never, ever come out to your family. And being stuck living with them because you don't have any other choice. And you lead a double life. I guess the only thing that I wish she could do is to leave family as soon as possible. But at the same time, not having a family support for people in transgender community or even in the wider LGBT community is quite hard. Yeah. A lot of people do grow up in an environment that do not feel like they belong. Like in a traditional society, a lot of time when they realize that they're a little bit different from their peers, they don't feel like they belong. And it is actually the family that could provide the best support that they can, so that they can become who they really are and strive to be who they want to become. One thing is not to live in a way that you identify yourself as a person that you are proud to be. And another way is live in the shadow that you can never belong. This is something that I believe that diversity, equality, and inclusion is all about. Creating an environment for people to identify themselves, be who they are, and try be in an environment that they can be better every single day and become someone that they're truly proud of in future. Yeah. It sounds big talk, but it starts from the smaller, like family or business enterprise. I don't know how many people watching this would understand how it is like to be different. Simply talking about being different from other people, feeling why, the self-question of why being different. And the diversity and inclusion is about embracing the difference, isn't it? Embracing the difference means having a safe environment or a comfortable environment that people don't have to be busy living a double life. Yeah. and also, it's not about encouraging us, the LGBT plus community, to come out. Yeah. It's about companies showing that they care and create an environment where whether or not you want to come out to your colleagues, it's okay. We can wave that pride flag. We can have inclusive insurance and benefits. We can include, gay marriage in our marriage leave policy, so you can also take your honeymoon. These little gestures all add up. And that's what it really makes a difference.
I always say that if only one day those LGBT people don't need to come out. It is, in the past, it was about coming out. Now it is really about not needing to come out.
Yeah.
That makes a very, very big difference.
Change the society, don't change the people.
Indeed. If there are any parents who want to know more about how to be a prouder parent, for example, where they can find help or resources?
Yes, this is very important. So for parents and carers of children that may identify as LGBT+, there are 2 organisations that I can recommend. One is PFLAG, so P for Peter, and then FLAG, F-L-A-G. If you Google it, there are lots of resources about understanding your child coming out as LGBT+, any part of the alphabet soup. And then there's also Boys and Girls Association in Hong Kong. There's something called Project Touch.
Okay.
And that's a more local Hong Kong organisation where parents and carers, and it's all in Chinese as well, they go and they have peer support, they have resources on how to deal with your child coming out to you, or suspecting that your child might be gay, lesbian, trans, non-binary. The other side is also Rainbow Families of Hong Kong.
Okay.
You can go on Facebook, you can Google it, and it's a small group of parents that identify as LGBT+, who have children. And so you have your gay dads on there, your lesbian mums, non-binary parents on there as well. And actually there's a WhatsApp group, which I am part of, which is pretty cool.
Okay. I guess hopefully one day we don't have to talk about horrible story of leading double life because they cannot be true to themselves. The rest of the world is doing quite well. Hong Kong is a bit behind. Maybe we can do something about it, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, well, hopefully there will be legalized same-sex unions in Hong Kong. What is it? In how long?
I think it's 2 years' time.
Fingers crossed for that.
Finger crossed for that. And thank you very much for today. It's been a very good talk. And I hope that more people knows about what is diversity, what is inclusion, and most of all, what is equality. Thank you.
Thank you.